It is 10 minutes before 2 in the morning, January 5th, 1995, and the man in the seat of the big yellow shovel is watching the wall in front of him start to move. Not all at once, just a trickle. A little run of loose rock skittering down the face of an 80-foot high wall, the kind of thing a shovel operator sees 100 times a shift and never thinks twice about. The truck driver waiting behind him sees it too. He backs into position anyway. The shovel swings, fills the bucket, and begins to load. 40 seconds later, the top of that wall leans out over the pit and comes down all at once. 50,000 tons of rock. And the man in the shovel never gets the chance to move. His name was Tracy Millard. He was 34 years old, and he had spent 13 years of his life inside this mine. What happened to him at 1:50 in the morning was not bad luck. It had already happened once that same night. Somebody had already said out loud that they were scared of that wall. And the wall that buried him sits inside one of the most famous holes in America. The richest 100 square miles on Earth. This is the Homestake Open Cut in Lead, South Dakota. And we should say it the way the locals do, because almost everyone gets it wrong. It is not lead like the metal. It is lead, pronounced lead, and named for a vein of ore. Homestake was the deepest, largest, and longest continuously running gold mine in American history. Over 125 years, it gave up more than 40 million ounces of gold, with 375 miles of tunnel running under the town. The open cut is the scar on the surface, a pit nearly a mile across, dug straight down into the mountain where the original gold claim was staked back in 1876. The strange part is where it sits. Main Street in Lead runs right up to the edge of it. People lived their whole lives looking down into that pit. By 1995, the easy gold was long gone. The rock coming out of the open cut averaged about 1/3 of an ounce of gold per ton, which means crews were moving mountains to find a little. So the mine ran a contractor, a company called Summit, around the clock to feed the mill. And in October of 1994, Summit had started cutting into a new section at the north end of the pit. They called it the mini pit. Here is what made the mini pit dangerous, because Tracy Millard was working at the bottom of it. They were digging down through old ground. The ore on this level was mixed with rotten timber from underground mining done decades before, which means the surface crews were cutting straight down into a mountain that was already hollow underneath. As they went deeper, 2 walls rose up on either side of the work area. On the west side, a 40-foot wall of loose material, and on the east side, the bad one, an 80-foot high wall of a rock called phyllite. Phyllite is the villain in this story, so it is worth 30 seconds. Pronounce phyllite as phyllite. It is a metamorphic rock, somewhere between slate and schist, built in thin parallel sheets that give it a silky sheen. Those sheets are the problem. They are planes of weakness, and the rock wants to split and slide along them. Get it wet, and it gets weaker. Blast near it, freeze it, thaw it, and those sheets start to let go. So you have an 80-foot wall that is practically designed to peel off in slabs, and at the very bottom of it, at the toe, you put a shovel and the man running it. The toe of a high wall is the single worst place to stand in an open pit. It is directly under everything that can fall. And on the night of January 4th, everything that could fall started falling early. Around 8 in the evening, more than 5 hours before Tracy Millard died, the other wall went first. The west wall sloughed down and partly buried one of the haul trucks, pinned it so badly it could not pull itself free. Millard had to dig it out with his shovel, and a bulldozer had to cable it loose. This was not a quiet night. The ground was already moving, and management knew it. The foreman called his superintendent. The superintendent called the vice president, and the vice president drove out to the pit around 10:30 to look at it himself. So they made a decision. They had Millard slope the west wall back to make it safer, and then go to work on the north face, right up against that east high wall, the wall made of phyllite. They moved the work directly under the most dangerous rock in the pit. Then comes the moment that turns this from an accident into something harder to forgive. At 12:30 in the morning, the crew stopped for lunch, and during that break, one of the truck drivers, a man named Mike Wagner, told the night foreman straight out that he was worried about working under those high walls down on that level. He said it, out loud, to the boss, an hour and 20 minutes before the wall came down. Nothing was done. Nobody pulled the crew back. Nobody brought a geologist down to look at the face. The loading just continued. At about 1:45, Wagner was next in line to be loaded. He pulled toward the shovel, and that is when he saw it, the trickle of material coming off the top of the east wall. He had said he was afraid of this exact wall 90 minutes earlier. He backed into the loading spot anyway, because that was the job, and Tracy Millard swung the shovel over and started filling his truck. We do not get to know what Millard saw in those last seconds. The shovel cab faced the work. The wall was right there. At 1:50, witnesses said the top of the high wall leaned out toward the middle of the pit and crumbled under its own weight. The whole 80 feet let go. The slide swallowed the shovel completely and slammed into Wagner's truck, partly burying it. Wagner's legs were trapped between the steering wheel and the console. He fought himself loose. Somebody helped him down, and he walked away with a head wound and a body full of bruises. He lived, and Tracy Millard was gone, somewhere under 50,000 tons of the wall he had been told to work beneath. What followed was 9 hours of the worst kind of digging. They could not just charge in, because the wall was still alive above them, with loose slabs and boulders hanging over the rescuers. They had to send backhoes up top to drag the dangerous rock down before anyone could work below. Then a front-end loader and more backhoes started pulling at the pile where the shovel was buried. The whole time, nobody could make contact. No voice, no sound. At 11:30 that morning, more than 9 hours after the collapse, they reached him. The coroner pronounced him dead at the scene. Then the federal investigators came, and their verdict was blunt. This is where most channels would give you a dry paragraph about regulations. We are going to tell you what the government actually concluded, because it matters. The Mine Safety and Health Administration found the direct cause was the failure to use mining methods that kept the walls stable as the pit went deeper. The contributing cause was the failure to properly examine that east high wall, which they noted may have revealed high wall problems that are common after blasting and changing weather conditions. In plain words, the wall was readable. Somebody could have read it. And then MSHA did something it does not do lightly. It cited both the contractor and Homestake itself for what it calls unwarrantable failure. For the company that owned the mine, the citation said management engaged in aggravated conduct constituting more than ordinary negligence. That is the federal government saying this went past a mistake. The contractor was cited for ignoring a reported hazard, the exact warning Mike Wagner gave at lunch, and for failing to provide a safe bench at the toe of that wall. 2 years later, a federal review commission upheld the core of those findings. The wall that killed Tracy Millard was not an act of God. It was on the record as preventable. Here is the part that stays with us. The shovel he was running was almost brand new. It was a Caterpillar 5130, a hydraulic mining shovel that had only existed since 1992. At the time, it was the biggest excavator Caterpillar had ever built. Their first real swing at the mining shovel market. A machine that weighed around 200,000 pounds. 3 years old, buried at the bottom of a pit at 2 in the morning. And was it ever pulled back out? That is the question we kept chasing. And we want to be honest with you. We could not confirm the answer. The Federal Control Order noted that recovering the shovel might require cutting the dangerous east wall down even further before anyone could safely reach it. The plan for the mini-pit, written before any of this happened, was to backfill it, to fill that hole back up to build a new haul road, which leaves an open question hanging over the whole story. Somewhere in the north end of the Homestake Open Cut, under the rock and the fill, the 5130 may still be down there. Because here is where the open cut ended up. The mine closed in 2001. The gold was finished. But a mile-deep hole and a town built on top of 375 miles of tunnel turned out to be worth something else. Today, the Homestake workings are the Sanford Underground Research Facility, one of the most important physics labs on the planet. A mile underground, in the same rock, scientists ran the experiment that proved neutrinos from the sun were reaching the Earth, work that won a share of the Nobel Prize in physics. The town that mined gold now hunts for the building blocks of the universe. And there is a visitor center on Main Street in Lead, with an observation deck where you can look straight down into that enormous, quiet hole. Most of the people standing there have no idea that down in the north end of the pit, a 34-year-old man named Tracy Millard was buried by a wall that 2 different people, on 2 different occasions that night, already knew was going to fall. If you want us to find out whether that Caterpillar 5130 was ever recovered, tell us in the comments, and we will keep digging. We read every one. Like and subscribe, because these are the stories that disappear if nobody watches them. We will see you in the vault.